Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Here to review the Raiders Ravens game from Monday night. And James Ogden is with me. So happy to have you on the program, James. It's been about time. Could you please just introduce yourself and tell the people where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, of course, Jason. It's great to be on. I'm James. As you can hear, I'm British. So you can find me on Twitter at NFL Ogden. You can also find me on Russell Street Report, writing the Battle Plans series this year for Russell Street Report. But I do a lot of other stuff. And on my own website, which is called redstarbaltimore.com, where I do all kinds of analysis and breakdowns. I do long reads, so settle in for a while if you're gonna read one of my pieces.
Yeah, James does a bunch of stuff. He's as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, than anybody I've had on the show. So you guys told me how much you love the guest. You're gonna love James too. All his links to this stuff will be below. Everything he sends me, I'm gonna put down there. So James, it's great to have you. Let's start. This was a tough game for Ravens fans. And stuff like this. Sometimes it's hard to take your emotions out. That's why I always like to give myself a good 24 hours just to get the emotions out and get my what I thought I saw out of my head and really dig in. We're going to start with Lamar Jackson, 19 to 30, 235, one touchdown. Also had 86 rushing yards, but of course, two crucial fumbles. So, what would be your synopsis? How would you characterize the game that Lamar Jackson had?
Yeah, I felt we saw. I felt we saw a little bit of growth from Lamar. It was mentioned slightly on the Monday Night Football broadcast, but you saw a little bit of a change in his mechanics that did I think have an effect. I don't think we saw any of the trademark wobbly ducks being put up there. There were a few balls he threw on an absolute line. So I think we saw some difference there with him in terms of his mechanics and keeping those balls accurate. I think there were a few people who felt that he missed a few throws. I actually thought a couple of the throws that he missed weren't on him, like the Tyson Williams miss on third down. He could have gone to Andrews, but I don't think that was his fault. I think that was a bit of a miscommunication. So I thought he had a very good game. I thought he continued to show, why we're extremely lucky to be able to watch him week in, week out with the running game. That there's just no point analyzing because it's from a different world. And there were a few absolute wow moments. I quite enjoyed the Peyton Manning moment on the alternative broadcast on the play where he rolls out to his right and throws the strike to Hollywood at the back of the end zone. We got spoiled again. But the turnovers were the thing that killed us. They had 14 points off those two fumbles, and I think I saw a thing about he's kind of gone back to his rookie year or something, regressed to his rookie year or something, which I just totally disagree with. But if Ravens fans remember, he had a number of fumbles his rookie year, and so hopefully that's not a sort of sign of things to come. I don't think it will be. I think he'll be fine. But I don't put the loss on him, but I saw that he definitely put the loss on himself.
Sure. When you're a quarterback, you have to. That's kind of accountability you need to have. I mean, we start with the quarterbacks for a reason. It's the most important position in all of sports. Maybe over there in England, you might think it's the goalkeeper. I'm not sure. Just trying to throw a dad joke out there. But yeah, James, his mechanics, it's something that I mentioned. I don't know if you've heard me talk about it before, but even in the practices, in certain things, I could tell just from his release point that he seemed more behind and on top of the ball. My viewers are probably sick of hearing me say that, but to see it translate into the game and put some balls on the absolute line, yeah, I think we saw some of that progression. The throw that you talked about to Tyson Williams, yeah, it looked like Andrews was his first read and he was open. I kind of was impressed. He showed off his going through his reads during this game is something that not many people know or casual fans don't know, but we see all the time. The man goes through his reads and makes makes great decisions. So yeah, the throw to Tyson, you said a little miscommunication. Tyson should have kept running on this. He kind of slowed up. He kind of threw it off. But yeah, overall, I say, a few passes Lamar would like to have back, but he hit the big ones. He hit the most difficult passes. I kind of gave him without the fumbles. I would say it would be a B plus. Give him an 87 out of 100 or something like that. And how you knock it down for those fumbles. I mean, they were pretty critical, but a lot of good coming out of Lamar in both of our opinions. So that's great. So James, offensive line. Obviously, this is the touchy subject. You don't need to be a film analyst to know that this is really what cost us the game. Could you please just pick out somebody on the offensive line and speak to their performance?
Yeah, so I'll pick out the. Well, no, actually, I won't pick out the obvious one. I'm going to pick out Ronnie Stanley, who did not have a good game, and I think he was lucky in a sense that it got masked by Villanueva, who would have been the obvious choice to talk about here. I think I want to highlight Ronnie Stanley's performance just because I don't believe that that's how it will be going forward. You know, I'm a big Ronnie Stanley fan. I think it was his first game back. There was a significant amount of rust. For me, it was things that you're just not accustomed to with Stanley that I think will just get fixed. You know, there were times when he was really sluggish out of his stance, and Gokwe just had him just with a bit of burst upfield. So I think we'll see a very different Ronnie Stanley as the season progresses. But I think it really caused a lot of challenges for protecting Villanueva, because you had a problem on both sides basically, and so I think there was a real challenge there for the Ravens, and that's why I think Villanueva was left out on an island as much as he was because there was an issue on the other side as well. So I think we'll see that get better. You know, we have to remember it was his first game back after the injury, and so I think we'll see an improvement there. But I just wanted to sort of point out that it was not a good game from Ronnie Stanley, and the Raiders ends had their ears pinned back.
I was going to say it was his movement. It was his movement for me too. He looked strong. Even moving in the second level in the open field, it doesn't look like the Stanley that we're accustomed to. I really don't have any long-term concerns with this, but every game's a must-win game. So the quicker he gets back up to speed, the better. But yes, that was if it was Ronnie Stanley, it's a bad game for Ronnie Stanley. Comparatively, though, when you look across the league, it wasn't terrible. Yannick had a very good game, was obviously very motivated before he got hurt. Max Crosby was over there, and I mean, he was the best player on the field probably during this game. The guy I wanted to pick out, I mean, I guess I'm going to talk about Bozeman first before we go on to Villanueva. Just a quick note on Bozeman, and you can speak very quickly on this too. Not to make every evaluation very long, but Bozeman, obviously the snaps, all of us were looking for that. They were good. He looked really strong. I think, James, the thing that excites me about Bozeman's move to center is, unlike other centers we've had in the past, Bozeman's got some true anchor to him. And when he was looking for work on these double teams, he was very active, knocking people who were engaged with the guard completely out of the play. So I was really encouraged about Bradley Bozeman. How about you?
Yeah, me too. I thought the interior. I thought Ben Powers did pretty well when he came in as well. I thought the interior looked pretty good. The one thing I felt, I completely agreed with everything you said about Bozeman. The one thing I felt was that there was him and Zeitler. It was quite obvious that they hadn't played together before, or played many snaps together. There were definitely some miscommunications. There were some issues, I think, with Bozeman in the run game on double teams. I saw him miss a couple of double teams, and which was basically he kind of just missed his assignment and moved to the second level at the same time that Zeitler did. So I think that'll get fixed. I'm not worried about that. It wasn't a sort of quality thing. It was more just working together, being part of a line.
Yeah, and those kind of things, James, when I see some mistakes like that, it just speaks to this is the training camp that everybody's saying they got to gel together. I mean, we even saw Zeitler and Villanueva on that side have a couple of problems. Theirs were more physically related, though, and not just, hey, we haven't worked together. It was just a small timing thing, I think. And then, of course, the one, I think it was only once that it was kind of just a blown, it looked like somebody blew it. Or was it more than once? I on account of once.
It may have just been once. I may be exaggerating it in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I missed it, but I'll go back many times over before the season's over. But yeah, I remember the play you're talking about, and then Alejandro Villanueva. Now, you know, I kind of want to ask you, like, what's your level of concern on a 1 to 10? Because for me, I'm hoping you can calm me down about this, but it's up there as high as it can get from my end because it's a physical thing, James. Like, it's not a mental thing. This man knows what he's doing. He got overwhelmed by Max Crosby. Then Nassib came in there and overpowered him. It looked like he was easily uprooted. James, can you just take your time on this one? Talk about your concern level and talk about what you think the Ravens will do about this.
Yeah, so let's talk about the issues first. I felt he made some strange decisions about his set points. It looked like he was setting on a 45, and it just wasn't. He continued to do it, and it just wasn't working because Crosby was just eating him alive with it. He couldn't move once he got to his set point with Crosby. He just had it. There is a thing, if you watch Villanueva back, that his height is a massive problem for him and has been his entire career in pass protection. He does some things to overcome his height that I saw him do very little of on Monday night. He talks his elbows, which is really important for a guy with height to be able to create leverage. He just didn't have anything working for him on Monday night, and the challenge was his height was working against him from within sort of half a second of the snap, whereas when Villanueva's at his best, his height is working against him a couple of seconds after the snap. So he was allowing very quick pressure. The other thing I think, which you pointed out before, which is that Crosby was the best player on the field, and he had an outstanding plan to just put Villanueva in a blender the entire night. So his rush plan was great. So I do think that he came up against one of the toughest opponents he'll come up against all season, and I do think he had a bad game by his standards. So we might be scraping the barrel with what Villanueva did there on Monday night. I feel like that may be his worst performance. However, he got $8 million guaranteed dollars. Like, he was paid a lot of money to come in and play right tackle at a high level. If they end up having to go and get in a right tackle, which if he continues to play at that level, that's a huge mistake. Really, that he basically was washed, and we've paid him a lot of money. So I'm not at that point yet. I don't think he is washed. I think there were some issues that I think he can correct and get better, but I don't think we're going to get the level of play that we would be expecting for the money we're paying him.
Yeah, I guess my fear is, James, that you talked about the height being a disadvantage, and I always say that you can cover up for one disadvantage if you have a strong suit. So with Villanueva, in other words, he was always able to move swiftly. So even if he would lose the leverage battle, he would be in a good position. And that's why I was saying when the offseason, okay, well, he's still a really good mover. Well, he didn't look like he was moving very well that Monday night. So if you can't move well and you can't handle power, then you have a real problem. So I'm glad that you're a little more optimistic. Maybe it's just veteran. Maybe he'll get into shape. But man, it's a definite worry. For me. Moving on to the wide receivers, I'll start with this one, and I just want to talk about James Prochet really quickly. One of my favorite players, a player I believe in. So I'm sure my fans or the viewers out there know what a big fan I am of his, and how disappointed I was. I always go by Yoshi 2052's numbers. Shout out to Yoshi. I'll probably put his link up here in the video too. But 7 snaps according to Yoshi for James Prochet. I think many of them, James, were late. Like I saw him in there in the fourth quarter and overtime. But I was really disappointed in this because with the pressure we were talking about, speeding around the edges, I thought that there would be an opportunity for Prochet to make his mark getting open quickly, which is his trademark, his strength. These little quick moves, these little slant routes, these little whip routes. One pass, I saw him wide open on the whip route. I believe it was on Andrews's drop, what people are calling his big drop, where Prochet had a sideline room to run. Maybe Lamar could have went there if maybe it was his second read, in other words. But really disappointed in Prochet's usage, and it makes me think that once Bateman gets back, man, it's going to be hard for a guy I believe in to get on the field. What are your thoughts on how he should be used, or anything you have on James Prochet II?
Yeah, so I'm right there with you on really? Prochet. I loved Prochet coming out of SMU. When I was sat watching day 3 of the draft, and when we traded back in to take him, I was like, wow, that's amazing, because I had him very high. I had him in my top 100. So I was really high on him. So I think I'd love to see more usage, but like you said, that's very telling, the usage. And I was surprised that Boykin made the roster. So when Bateman comes back, one of those guys is getting cut. So I mean, it didn't bode well, and especially as they appear to be comfortable with not having, I always feel really safe when Prochet is back at kick return, punt returner, and Duvernay did drop the ball at one point, and so but they seem to be comfortable with the risk of Duvernay because of the reward that's potentially there with Duvernay. So Prochet hasn't even got the kick return, punt return job to lean back on to potentially keep his job. So, hopefully we see a few more snaps from him over the next few games, and he gets on the stat sheet, and he maybe earns the right to a bit more opportunity. But you're right, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about it.
Yeah, you know what? You brought me to a good place of thinking here about Boykin. Hadn't really considered that yet, to be honest with you. But the move today or yesterday to cut Trenton Cannon. Now, from what I understand, off the record, is that Trenton Cannon was our gunner. And that was one of the reasons that we kept him. It wasn't for the kick coverage. We had other guys who can cover kicks, but we looked at Trenton Cannon as a gunner, someone that could really help us there. Last night we saw Tylan Wallace do a really good job. So there's a chance that Boykin, when he comes back, how they view Wallace and the other performers at gunner will maybe go into that decision whether they want to keep somebody who's a receiver or somebody who's a blocker. Also, side note, next guy we're going to talk about, actually, Sammy Watkins, blocked his butt off, James, from what I saw. I was really impressed with that because it's not when I was looking at him, I was watching his targets. You don't have time to watch every single snap that Sammy Watkins took. But in that running game, even after a couple of passes were completed, Sammy was very active, and it seems that he's got a role in this team, and it's going to help this team. We're all down about the results, but Sammy Watkins a bright spot in this game, James.
Yeah, definitely for me. And producing content now, I have to. You'll know this. You have to kind of move on pretty fast. And actually, I'd moved on about 5 days ago. Actually, I started studying the Chiefs about 5 days ago for writing battle plans. And so yesterday, I sort of wrote my first pass at the piece, and it'll be out on Thursday. And Sammy Watkins is a huge key to that game, and I was really encouraged by his performance against the Raiders. It was exactly what I expected to see. The thing that I was most encouraged by, really, because I thought I would see that from Watkins, was the rapport he had with Lamar. Lamar tries really hard to trust receivers. People think that there is a narrative out there about him kind of only trusting Andrews and Hollywood. I do think he tries really hard to trust receivers. I've seen him go back to Boykin several times in a premeditated fashion after Boykin makes a terrible mistake that costs him an interception. So I think he tries really hard to trust receivers. I think just plenty of them have proven him why he shouldn't trust them. But Watkins will definitely prove him right to trust him, and he did on Monday night. So if that rapport is developing, that's great. The reason why he's important for the Chiefs game is that the Chiefs just have zero respect for the Ravens receivers. Spagnuolo has proven that over 2 games now, over the last 2 seasons. And so they take Brown and Andrews out of the game, and then just expect no one else to get it to uncover. And that's been true the last couple of games. But I think they will have a little bit of a problem with Sammy Watkins because he will uncover. But to your point as well, I loved watching him in the run game. We got a glimpse of the reasons why Sammy Watkins has thrived in Greg Roman offenses over the years.
Yeah, I think Sammy's going to make it hard for teams to play just straight up zone against us too, James. If we're going to get into the X's and O's about it, we know Lamar faces a ton of zone because of his ability to scramble. They want to keep everything in front of them, but Sammy will find that soft spot in the zone with the best of them. I really admire his play last night. I thought it was great. Just the other receivers too. Hollywood, the other receiver. Great game for Hollywood. I don't think we really need to go into his game. Everybody saw what he can do, and it was more of the same of what we've seen. So, yeah, receiver group, that was pretty much it, though. There wasn't a lot from anybody else. Tight ends, quiet day for Andrew. We've seen these for Mark Andrews. We've seen these kind of games before. Not really going to talk about him too much, but I wanted to ask you about Nick Boyle and his impact when he comes back, how he can help on the line with Villanueva, specifically on that strong side. How much do you think, and in the running game, how much do you think we're missing Nick Boyle, and how much of a boost do you think that'll be when he comes back?
I think we're missing him in a big way. The other reason why it's important that he comes back, particularly for max protection, is that it appears at the moment that we don't have a running back we trust to do everything that this offense asks. So I think a lot of fans were disappointed with the snap count for Tyson Williams. There were times when he didn't ID blitzers at all well in pass protection, and there were times when his his effort and physical toughness were in question on some of those blitzes. So right at the end specifically. So I think there's a lot of, we just don't. You would trust Latavius Murray to pass protect, but they currently don't trust him to run the whole offense. So for a couple of weeks at least, we are struggling with options for max protection to help Villanueva. Boyle is a huge miss from that perspective. He's also a huge miss in the run game. So it really does affect us in a big way, and I can't wait for him to be back.
Me too, and we'll transition to the running backs. Just to build off your point on Tyson, I was really disappointed, more so when I watched the replays and watched what film I had of his pass protection, James, because that stood out to me as just the surprise. I was a little bit surprised at how nimble he was and how he was able to make people miss in the preseason. But when I looked at his pass pro, I'm like, oh my goodness, this man is a complete back, and he just missed it. And but yeah, Nick Boyle, though, I could see, especially with Le'Veon Bell on the field, us having Nick Boyle in there to protect the quarterback and flexing Bell out to create the mismatch that Nick Boyle had. But Tyson, what was it, 7 carries, I believe? If I have it, 9 carries for 65 yards. He had a couple of catches in there. How about him as a runner, though? And if you want to talk about him and Murray just as a straight runner, you touched on the fact that Murray doesn't have the whole playbook at his disposal already.
Yeah, so Tyson as a runner was everything I expected him to be. I think on the pass protection front, I just wanted to point out, I think... So he, if people don't know his career, he transferred from North Carolina to South Carolina very early in his college career. Just couldn't win a kind of a significant role at South Carolina. So then transferred to BYU. At BYU, he played 4 games and then tore his ACL. So the guy hasn't played in every down back role at all, really. He's played it for a couple of games in college. So, I was with you. It wasn't expected. I didn't expect to see him that poor in pass protection. But then you sort of think about it, and maybe that will take some time to come for him. Because the big problem that people sort of don't get with it is that pass protection ID. It can be difficult to identify blitzers if you just not face that kind of stuff.
And
before.
James, not to cut you off there, but we saw it with Dobbins last year. It just took him a while. It wasn't a matter of physical ability. It's something that every young back struggles with, similar to linebackers in coverage. So go ahead, continue your thought, James. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you totally right. And I think the thing with Murray, he's for me. So use a bit of a player evaluation term called play speed. So I have no concerns about Murray's athletic ability. Like he has plenty of juice enough to play running back. I felt his play speed last night was Monday night. Well out of sync here now in the UK with my sleep patterns.
Yeah.
With Monday night, he was I thought he played a little slower than he would normally play, but that's very much to be expected for a guy who had just a few days with us before he had to play a game. I always struggle watching Murray because he has such a high pad level because of how tall he is, and that always bothers me. But that should only bother you if the guy hasn't played in the NFL for a number of years. He knows how to overcome that, and has been a really good back despite the fact that he runs quite high. So I don't really have too many worries about that. So I think he was just sort of easing into his role, and we'll see him get better and better as he has longer in the offense.
Yeah, it makes you respect Gus. Really, because
I
mean, you say, all right, well, Murray's going to take a large portion of these runs that we're relying on Gus for, but man, Gus hits the hole so hard. Latavius Murray is no slouch, as you mentioned. I really like his balance is the quality that I think translates. We saw it on the touchdown run. Just he's got a little bit of nimbleness, I guess, if that's a word. He's pretty nimble for a big guy, tall guy. And, of course, we've seen him run hard. So I think he'll be fine in this offense. You never know, though. I mean, the counterpoint would be, running backs kind of fall off real quick. So hopefully we get the best version of Latavius Murray and Tyson Williams. Hopefully both of their games get improved as the year will go along. And Lev Bell, let's hope he has something. I believe Lev Bell has the legs still left in the tank. If he's on board mentally, he's going to help this team. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the offense before we move to the other side?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, how about we talk about the defensive line? The guy I wanted to mention and speak about very quick right off the bat was Justin Madubuike. We had 86 snaps on defense. Derek Wolfe was not active. Despite that, Madubuike only played 33 out of 86 snaps, which was a big surprise to me. I was really looking forward to him just dominating some questionable guards and centers in this game, especially after Denzel Good went out. So the Raiders were really a makeshift on the interior line. Our up-and-coming young stud, who should be in better shape than everybody else, only got 33 snaps. I mean, a couple of good plays. What did you see from Madubuike, and what do you make of his usage, I guess is my main question.
Yeah, so for me, I did a long read on Madubuike in the offseason, did a lot of his tape. The thing about Madubuike is he's still very raw, especially as a pass rusher. So I'm not expecting a huge pass rush year out of him. The usage was definitely interesting, but I think it was a little bit related to game script. They were getting those big guys, Calais Campbell was the zero technique on a number of the Raiders' likely pass plays. So they were getting those big guys off the field a lot. So the thing for me is Madubuike, like I said, is not yet a particularly polished pass rusher. What I felt was that I did see some of the things I expected to see in terms of in the run game. His upfield burst, his use of the way he uses his hands was all there, and that power and athleticism was really difficult for them in the run game. he still doesn't necessarily play as part of a unit in the run game. He can freelance a little bit, and like I said, I don't think he's yet a force as an interior pass rusher, and I don't expect to see that this year. May expect to see more of it next year once he's played a lot more snaps. However, he needs to actually play a lot more snaps, which he didn't on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm going to push back actually for the first time on this. I agree that he's not polished as a pass rusher. I agree about his eyes in the run game too. Like sometimes he'll have his head down and he'll get a little lost. But against inferior athletes who aren't technicians themselves, this is the kind of game where I would say, all right, McPhee doesn't have great hands yet, but he is a lot quicker and stronger than these inexperienced. We had a former tackle playing his first game at center along with makeshift guards. So I guess not that you're disagreeing with me, but I would say there's no reason to only play him 33 snaps, and then Campbell played 60, so you're looking almost twice as much for a guy, Calais, guy we should be protecting. I would have liked to see Madubuike just use his power and strength, and then when you're playing a team like the Browns, for instance, with veteran in guards, that's the game where I would want to see Campbell and Wolf play more. Would you make it Campbell's play? Yeah, I liked him over the nose guard on those obvious obvious pass situations. He made a couple of splash plays and just blew up a couple of plays.
Yeah. So first of all, you make a great point about Madubuike and the level of competition that you would have also expected him to see, even in the 30-yard snaps. You would have expected to see him, beat those guys a couple of times on in his pass rush. So you make a great point there. I thought Calais was great. The only thing I'd say is that we did struggle to get any kind of pressure. There were a couple of times when Campbell did get in the backfield, but I would have expected a more dominant performance. And like you say, the usage up at 60 snaps is a little bit of a concern because they had him on a much more managed snap count last year. And I'd like to see that continue. The guy is extremely efficient with the snaps that he does play. When he played last year, you saw a guy who was amongst the top guys in the league in terms of pressures per snap. So I wouldn't want to be using him too much and losing that, given that he's getting up there in age now.
Yeah, another guy transition, whether you like it or not, James. You transitioned great on this a couple of times. Justin Houston played 56 out of 86 snaps. Now, I kind of expected him to be around less than 50, 40%. It looked like we were using Houston in a place where I would expect Dalen Hayes to eventually be on that strong side as Bowser's backup. So we really used Houston. I can't blame the Ravens on one front because he was the most consistent, from what I saw, pass rusher when we wanted to go with four men. Justin Houston, if he's not getting home quickly, he's eventually getting home, which I really love about him. It's not just going to be a blank play where he's stonewalled. He's going to keep working. What were your impressions of Justin Houston? Did you see it much the same as I did, or what can you expand on what I said?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. You kept seeing Houston out there, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I did not expect him to be out there as much as he was, because I definitely expected him to be on more of a snap count. And 50, when you look at outside linebacker snaps from last year, 50 is a high number for a Ravens outside linebacker. I think it's the same thing you saw for me. Like he was the most consistent in terms of beating his guy one-on-one. I love watching Justin Houston play. He's such a great pass rusher. He's a technician as a pass rusher and has so many different moves he can use and deploys them all so effectively in tandem. So I really like Houston as a rusher, and we got exactly what we thought we'd get. He was our most effective rusher. I think we'll talk about OA, but Houston was definitely our most. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think OA. I was really excited by Dafe away. And I'm trying to contain my excitement as much as I can, because there is still an awful lot of polish required there. And we do need to remember that there were times when, he was sort of stonewalled for reasonably long periods. So there's an awful lot still there to work on, but we got exactly what we were looking for, which was, if a running back is going to hesitate on an outside zone play, when Adafe Owe's on the backside, he's going to get smashed from behind regularly. We got a guy who, has all the speed in the world to chase down quarterbacks outside the pocket. He's going to get a lot of cleanup sacks. But we also saw glimpses of that scary pass rush that he could bring. So I was really impressed with Owe. Like I said, it was everything we expected. But I also liked the way we used him. So we used him on a lot of games and stunts, and there were times when him and McPhee working in tandem were almost unstoppable. I'm really excited to see him and Wolf in tandem, because Wolf has a real track record of being the guy, in Denver who was able to set up Von Miller on those stunts and things. So I'm really excited to see him work in tandem with others. I thought I saw a little bit of improvement in terms of his use of hands, in terms of his bend. Like that was starting to get a little better. But there'll be baby steps with that. He's very, very raw. I'll give a quick shout out to Mike Crawford, who we were talking over the off season about his about Owe. Like his kind of movements as a player, he still looks like Mike says he still looks like a basketball player out there. That he still sort of plays quite upright and doesn't really have the football movements yet. But I don't think either of me or Mike sort of expect him not to add that to his game eventually. So I think we're gonna it was a promising debut from Owe.
I thought so too. 48 snaps for him. Like you said, that's not usually Ravens pass rush. Not since the days of really Suggs. We've been moving people in and out. So he, 48 out of, 86 snaps. So he played, more than half of those. I love the fact that Owe is going to be able to be used all over this defense. You mentioned the stunts. That's money for him right now, because, his main issue, I think, besides the hand usage, is just his get off the snap. For a guy as quick as he is, he really can't burn the edge at this point in his career. But what the stunts that he's running, you don't need a good first step. As a matter of fact, your first step is kind of a jab step or a hesitation. But the way he was able to be slippery and get in the hole in a hurry was just really impressive. And you mentioned McPhee, Campbell's good at it. Wolf was great at it. If you try to, for lack of a better term, half-ass those stunts, passing off those stunts, the Wolves and Campbells are going to get you if you pass it off too quickly. So I was impressed with Owe. And then, there was another play. Hopefully when I get the all-22 back over here, I'll be able to put it up over our faces. But a running play late in the game where he just chased the back down to the edge is just his pure athleticism and hustle is really going to pay off. I think he has pretty good eyes too, James. Like, that's something that's big for me for any defender. He kind of sees what's going on. So, yeah, a very promising debut. Do you want to talk about Bowser or anybody else? I guess it was just Bowser and McPhee. Anything you saw from those two?
Yeah, Bowser, it was. I thought his usage was a little interesting. There were times when he was the only linebacker on the field, which last year was always Queen. So that was interesting that they did that. I think we saw everything that I love about Tyus Bowser. He had a good game. I felt we saw some of that growth that we've got with him as a pass rusher. Part of me is wondering what would happen if you actually turned him loose as a pass rusher for 50, 60 snaps a game. I think you might see a really good pass rusher as well. But obviously we use it pretty sparingly. But when we do use it, you see some really great moves, and he's going to be a key piece for this defense all year long, I think.
Yeah, he's getting there with his pass rush like every year, and it's nothing fancy. It's nothing super athletic. he's a powerful individual. He uses his hands he's got strong hands. So you're not going to see the variety of moves you get from Houston or even like a spin move. You're not really going to get a lot of that. What you're going to get is a ferocious rusher with his eyes up. And if the quarterback moves to his side or drifts out of the pocket, Bowser is usually right on that. So the inside linebackers, you mentioned, they took Queen off the field a couple of times. Queen still played a large number of snaps to have Bowser in there. What did you make of Patrick Queen's game? Maybe I'll start with this one. I think that he carried over a lot of what we saw in the preseason over in this game. He did carry some of the bad over from last year in this game. A couple of plays he was completely wiped out on. But for the most part, it's looked like he has taken a noticeable step up in being able to diagnose things and just get there quickly. And his blitzing ability, I'll stand by it. I've been questioned about this before, being accused of just overhyping a Ravens player. But he is one of the best blitzing linebackers in the NFL. From the time he stepped on the field, really, we saw him make a big play last night. And James, it's not just the quickness, the speed, the slipperiness. It's the way he times it, sets it up. It's just absolutely beautiful. So give me what you got on Patrick Queen.
Yeah, that sack was beautiful, wasn't it? It was great. Yeah, I think so. I'm with you. I felt like he's taken a noticeable step forward. I think the step forward I liked about it was that he was, last year he had golf shots. He had moments where one or two plays on a drive where you'd say, wow, that was great. I felt like Monday night, he was stringing together several plays. The fact that the comms had to talk about how once you've got a guy in this kind of rhythm, they might throw something at him that gets him out of it. I was just encouraged that he was actually in a rhythm,
right.
which didn't happen a whole lot last year. So I think he's got to a point now where he's I feel like he's taken a noticeable step forward. Like you said, there was still some of the bad there, and there was I think it was the Jacobs touchdown where he didn't diagnose. But I think he has definitely taken a step forward, and that's really encouraging because without people forget that last night on defense we were missing Wolf, we were missing Pete, obviously missing Peters, we were missing LJ4. Often we when we needed a savvy linebacker on the field, we used to just stick LJ4 in for a good sort of set of snaps, and we couldn't do that last night. We have to now rely on Queen and Harrison, and I thought Harrison looked pretty good as well. So I'm encouraged by both of those guys.
Yeah, I'm a big Harrison fan, so actually I was a little bit disappointed by Harrison last night, just because my expectations from him are so high. I don't think he had a bad game. There was a missed tackle in there late in the game I didn't like. I like to see Malik just lay the wood, and opportunities weren't really there for him last night, but I don't worry about either one of them. We're getting much better play, I think, by the middle of this year if Patrick can stay healthy, especially. And stay as close to 100% as possible during an NFL season. We're going to see great things from him. The secondary.
Jason,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, the one thing I just I forgot to touch on, and I wanted to touch on the defensive line was just one of the things was we really struggled to get a whole lot of consistent pressure on Derek Carr, and I just wanted to mention that I felt that the thing that makes me a little sort of less concerned about the defensive line, just because I think it's probably worth mentioning because I think people are concerned about that, is that I felt the Raiders did a phenomenal job. And this is I think what we have to remember is that we were playing a veteran quarterback who did a masterful job at identifying wing splitzes and sorting the protection out. So he really helped out his offensive line, and their game plan helped out their offensive line. There were times when they kept Jacobs and Ingold in to block. There were times when he came on those stunts and looked great, and Josh Jacobs came out of nowhere and absolutely stoned him. So I think there were a number of there are a number of good performances on the Raiders side. And they self-scouted. They knew their weakness. They knew the offensive line was a weakness, and they put in plenty of places to help them out. So I felt like the lack of pressure for me wasn't necessarily about the Ravens. I think it was more about the Raiders doing a good job. I just thought it was mentioned.
Man, no, I'm glad you did. I mean, that's a great point. And it was very relevant and important in this game. The combination of Derek Carr and John Gruden. You can say what you want about his influence on the offseason and the moves in the draft. I question a ton of moves that the Raiders make every year. But on game day, John Gruden is excellent. During the week preparing, John Gruden is excellent. That's why this Raiders team is so hard to figure out, and they'll have big wins and just head-scratching losses. It's just that, Gruden and his crew can step up. Derek Carr is excellent. I mean, the term intelligent quarterback gets thrown around a lot, but he's Peyton Manning-like in his pre-snap reads. And we saw a couple of times later in the game where the Ravens were trying to match him. It kind of reminded me of the Ray Lewis days where whatever Peyton would do, Ray would overmatch him and have Peyton throwing up his arms. But yeah, the Ravens, we're having a hard time getting home because of Derek Carr and Gruden's preparation, and it is a credit, especially to Derek Carr. I mean, just a great job. So I'm glad that you brought that up. From a coaching standpoint, and we're going to need these 4-man rushes and 5-man rushes to get home for us, because in the secondary, James, I thought we did a good job for most of the game, but there were a couple of times where I remember Ruggs' big catch really bothered me because we had Anthony Averett on Brian Edwards, and we had, I believe it was Westry on Henry Ruggs. So if you look at the skill sets of both, it's like, why aren't we putting our fast guy on their fast guy, our big guy on their big guy? And that's where I think the loss of Marcus Peters really, really hurts us, to have an every down corner that we can depend on. What did you think about Westry? He was a guy that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I so first of all, I just wanted to agree with you there. I think Peters allowed us to basically not have to trail in coverage. It was something that we very, very rarely did last season. So that was really obvious to me too, that there were just some times when you had obvious mismatches when because of the way our corner room is currently built. I was really encouraged by Westry. I was kind of pumping the brakes a lot in the preseason. Sort of like there were some snaps in the preseason that concerned me, and so I expected him to sort of sit at the bottom of the depth chart and develop. But actually, what I saw from him on Monday night was some true corner skills. It wasn't just he wasn't just a crazy big guy playing corner. There were times when he did get beat, but I felt like when he got beat, he was actually in pretty good coverage. And there were times when you saw him turn and locate the football really well when he was locked up in man coverage down the field. I was really impressed with him actually, but maybe that was because my expectation level, I kept it pretty low coming in.
No, I had an open mind, but I thought that one of the main thing with him that was going to hold him back was his ability to find the ball, as you just mentioned. I mean, and he almost had an interception in that game. I was really impressed, and I was kind of comparing his coverage to Brandon Stevens, even though they play kind of different positions. Because when you're looking at matching up on big slots and big tight ends, Westry looked a lot more comfortable than Stevens. And in the preseason, if you would have asked me before this game, I would have said that's Brandon Stevens' job. It looked like Brandon Stevens had his moments, but then had his poor moments, whereas Westry seemed very steady all day. What about Marlowe? Obviously the game-winning touchdown. It looked to me, my analysis is he just kind of wore down. I mean, we were using this man as a one-man show on defense. Wherever the leaks were, it was put Marlon there. When Renfro was started to burn us, we'll put Marlon over there. Waller will have Marlon over there. He made so many great plays. It looks like we are wearing him out, though, James.
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder if I wonder if he was playing her after it. It's very rare that you see Marlon come off the field even for a snap, just from an injury. So, and he did on Monday night. So I wonder if he was playing her towards the end as well. I agree. I mean, so for anyone who doesn't follow me, I did the Scouting Academy this summer, and at the start of the Scouting Academy, you're supposed to do you're supposed to evaluate your favorite player, and Marlon was the player I evaluated because he is.
Nice.
And the guy is just, I mean, he's one of a kind, and the reason I say he's one of a kind is because his movement skills, his size are ridiculous. To be able to move and play the way that we played him last night, but also the way that he played all season, well, over a number of seasons with us, which is to just play him basically everywhere. He has that versatility. I can't begin to describe how difficult that is for someone. I'm in awe of Marlon, and he had a great game last night. Obviously the final touchdown was disappointing, but I also sort of don't put that all on him. And I think that, like you said, I think we are wearing him out, and we do need to be a little bit careful of that as the season progresses, because if he goes down, I think it's probably over if he goes down. That's how important he is.
Yeah, James, I want to get your opinion real quick. Not something that I told you we were going to talk about, but it looked like we were hanging guys out to dry a little unnecessarily last night. Would you, from a defensive coordinator standpoint, how did you see that? Can you speak on that, or is too much being made of what Wink's calls were at certain times?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Wink always gets a pretty big pass because of how phenomenal he's been over the years, and I do think we've seen this. We have seen this before, where Wink kind of refuses to compromise despite some limitations that we might have, which for me last night, Monday night, was about the fact that we didn't have Peters. We had a number of guys who aren't kind of complete corners, and he did have to sort of mix and match with people. He did have to get a bit creative with the way they use people. And why I say don't compromise is that a lot of those guys were pretty inexperienced, and he just played his normal game. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next week against the Chiefs as well, because I think if you play our game as a defense against the Chiefs, it's going to end very, very badly. So it'll be interesting to see if he can sort of adapt his game plan a little bit. I think what normally happens when this happens, and I'm thinking back to a couple of years ago, where it was kind of a slow start for the defense, but as they start to get more comfortable in the scheme, it starts to look a whole lot better as the year wears on. So we may see the benefits of Wink being a bit stubborn and sticking with it later in the season, but we'll see. It felt like he just had a bit of an off game as a coordinator for me. There was a snap. I think it was in overtime where Queen and Taylor Young were kind of assigned to the back and the tight end, and the Raiders kept the back and the tight end in to protect, and it was almost like it was just slightly out of sync. We're so used to not seeing Wink have those kind of issues where he just he's making the offense march to the beat of his drum, and it was a little bit different last night, Monday night.
Yeah, I mean it just seemed like it was. I don't know. I don't want to put a number on it, but between 5 and 10 times where, I mean, just people that, everybody would say, or most people would say, why aren't we playing the defense like this? The end of regulation, obviously, the announcers were pointing it out. Hey, there's a time to be aggressive and there's a time to know where the marker in the game situations. but not having Marcus Peters is a long term issue. You're not there's not another Marcus Peters out there in the NFL. There's not going to be somebody probably that we can bring in to even play that role as a every down number 2 corner. You want to mix and match Averett with guys who he favors. You want to mix and match Westry with guys they favor. Jimmy. There should be a good plan there to use these guys. Elliott, though, that's another player that I think that he's very good at what he does. I thought that it was a little bit of an off game for Elliott, but again, I think Wink plays into a little bit of that. How much do you think, or do you disagree? Do you think Elliott had a very good game?
No, I don't think he did. I think we were reminded. There's been a lot of talk about Deshaun Elliott potentially having a kind of breakout year and playing himself out of contention for staying in Baltimore. I'm not entirely sure that will be the case. I think I think Chuck Clark is extremely underrated, and it was really nice to see him highlighted on Monday night with some of his play. I don't think Elliott had his best game. I can sort of agree with you that I think we'll see better games from Deshaun Elliott. I would agree with you there.
Yeah, I'm actually one of the people who think he will price himself out of Baltimore and thought that he was a breakout candidate. I still think that he could use some experience, but he is not a true free safety. So you kind of have to play games, mix and match. That's something I think Brandon Stephens will help with. And I just always imagine Elliott. I mean, he is a very good blitzer, too. I would love to see him freed up and be able to cause havoc in and around the line of scrimmage, which is something we use Chuck Clark for as well. Any notes on that, or what else do you have on the game as we start to wrap up here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you were talking about Stephens, I was thinking that they did use Stephens really interestingly on Monday night. He was moved around a lot, and it looked to me, it's rare that the Ravens play a rookie defensive back in that way, as a versatile piece that moves around and does all kinds of things. So they definitely are, I think we knew they were very high on Stephens. They definitely are, just from his usage, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it matched kind of the preseason, didn't it? Like they used him everywhere in the preseason, but it wasn't just an experiment. Where if it was an experiment, he passed with flying colors. He had a really good preseason, and I think that he can really help this defense. Looked like he was overwhelmed a couple of times, but at other times it looked like we're really going to be able to use Brandon Stephens.
Yeah, and I see people talk about the snap where Waller beats him off press. Waller's going to be an awful lot of people off press this year, so I don't really worry about that too much. I think, like you say, he had a good game, and it'll be. I think he's going to be a useful weapon going forward.
Well, James, I thank you so much for everything and taking the time. I mean, guys, James got up awful early here to accommodate everybody out there. Wonderful X's and O's talk. The long reads, all the good stuff that James brings to the table, man. Thank you so much, and I hope that I hope you're willing to do this again for me, because it's really fun talking about, and maybe with it not being a Monday night game every night, maybe we can find one of these daytimes and a better time for you the next time. But with you doing the battle plans, I would love to hear how your battle plans came to fruition, went wrong, and recap it with me whenever you'd like to do it, buddy. I would love to have you on.
That'd be great, Jason. I'd love to come back. It'd be great.
All right, so to football family out there, thank you very much. Say goodbye, James.
Cheers. Bye-bye.